Hi, it's Penny here, and today I'm going to be doing the D&D Book Tag. As usual, book tags are just a really great excuse to talk about a bunch of great books, perhaps through a slightly different lens than normal. I was tagged by Paige from Pages with Paige, so I'll link her and the book tag creators down below. But let's get into the prompts. So firstly, we have Everyone's Dead, a character with a tragic backstory. So for this, the first one that came to mind for me was Furious Parfax. So we first meet Furious Parfax in the Spellslinger books by Sebastian de Castell. It's a 7-book series, and primarily we're following this boy who has started to lose his magic, and he ends up with Furious Parfax as his mentor as he goes out and explores the world. Now then, Sebastian de Castell wrote like a spin-off series where there's 3 books telling Furious's backstory, and it's a lot more tragic than you might realize from the Spellslinger books. So in the Spellslinger books, Furious Parfax really has her shit together. But in the first book from her spin-off series, we meet her just as like everybody from her family has been killed. So it starts out pretty brutal and it doesn't always get better. And I always like to point out that you don't need to read the Spellslinger books to enjoy the Argosy series and Furious Parfax's backstory, because I get the feeling a lot of people don't want to get through or can't get through those 7 Spellslinger books. But I really thought at least the first 2 books from the Argosy trilogy were better and totally worth a read. Then prompt number 2 is Roll Persuasion with Advantage, an auto by author. So to be honest, I don't really have auto by authors anymore because I've pretty much stopped myself from buying books, at least until we move, because I don't want to have more books to move, but also like I've got limited shelf space. So normally I'm not really going to buy a book unless I've read it and I really loved it. There are a couple of exceptions. The first would be Alona Andrews, specifically though, if there's another book coming out, I don't know when it will be, but another book in the Kate Daniels world or another one of Aurelia Rider's books. But when the second book comes out, it will come out, but I think it might be a little while. When it comes out, I will definitely be buying it because I already started the collection. The other exception to the rule is the Stormlight Archives by Brandon Sanderson. So I've been buying these particularly beautiful editions. And again, I want to have a full set. So when the 5th book comes out in these editions, I'll definitely be buying it. Then prompt number 3 is Me and the Boys Gonna Mess You Up, an ensemble cast that you love. So I could definitely pick the cast from the Kate Daniels series, but I don't like to double up when I do book tags. And I could also do the Stormlight Archives, but again, no doubling up. So what I'm actually going to go with is The Cursed Princess Club by Lambcat. This was a real surprise win for me this year. The Cursed Princess Club was like a webtoon series, but now it's being released as books as well. And we follow these 3 princesses from the Pastel Kingdom who've been betrothed to the 3 princes from the Plaid Kingdom. But when the 3rd prince meets the 3rd princess who he is betrothed to, he discovers that she is not as classically beautiful as the other 2 princesses, and he's not so happy about it. And then that 3rd princess is really kind of struggling with not feeling like she is this classically beautiful princess, and she ends up meeting this group of cursed princesses. So the Cursed Princess Club, and they're all these just different princesses with all these weird curses that they haven't been able to cure themselves of. And just the character development in the story was amazing. But also there are parts where the Cursed Princess Club comes together to go up against other characters at different times and different situations. And like they are just a force to be reckoned with. I feel like they could take on anything. Then prompt number 4 is I rolled a 1, a character that tries their best but keeps on failing. For this, actually the first thing that came to mind was Fitz from the Realm of the Elderlings, but that felt too obvious, and also I might want to use the Realm of the Elderlings for another question later. So instead I decided to go with Nyx from the Beldame Apocrypha series by Cameron Hurley. So in this series we have Nyx, who is this bounty hunter, or more specifically like a disgraced bounty hunter, and then when she discovers this political conspiracy that's going on, she ends up kind of having to go on kind of like an undercover mission, and she's pulling together this crew to help her with it. But through this whole series, like Nyx tries her best, sort of. Does it ever go well for her? It really doesn't. And also, I never see anyone talking about this series, so if you like a kind of badass but always fucks everything up kind of character, and you also think like sci-fi fantasy bounty hunting with some bug-based science and all sorts of like conspiracies and magic religion stuff sounds interesting, Then prompt 5 is roll to Tame the Floof, a book with a dangerous creature you'd like to have as a pet. So again, Realm of the Elderlings is what came to me first. I would really love to have one of the dragons, specifically in the Dragon Keeper Chronicles, the Rainwell Chronicles. What is that series called? The Rainwell Chronicles. One of these dragons, I'd love to own them. I specifically love the way that these dragons are just so superior, even though in this series they are very dependent on the dragon keepers to like take care of them, and still they just view humanity as so much below them, and I love it. In a lot of ways they just feel like giant magical cats in the form of dragons. Now, I did also have another answer for this one, and that was Puppy Cat from Bee and Puppy Cat, because when I thought about magical creatures from books that I would like to have as a pet, I actually thought Puppy Cat would be pretty cool. Puppy Cat basically is able to take their owner through to other dimensions where they work for this like interdimensional temp agency doing all sorts of weird magical tasks, and it's super cute. And like, if I was gonna work any job, then maybe an interdimensional temp wouldn't be so bad. But I think when I thought of Puppy Cat, I'm not really sure how dangerous they really are. So maybe I forgot about that bit of the prompt. Prompt 6 is DM Rolls Unexpectedly, a book that surprised you. So again, this could be Cursed Princess Club, but instead what I'm going to go with is the 5th Season by N.K. Jemisin. This book specifically in the series, because this is a trilogy, but it was the first book where the way that the different perspectives come together in the end was just so well done. So in this series, basically we're following this older woman who comes home to discover that her husband has found out that her baby and her other daughter have this like earth magic that there's a lot of prejudice about, and has killed her baby, basically. Awful. And she goes off in search of her other daughter that he's taken away. We also have a young girl who's being taken to this school where they train people with these earth powers, and we're following kind of a more middle age, or actually like a young woman who's just kind of graduated from this magic school and is now learning what she's expected to do after that. But I think what's also really nice about this is the older woman's perspective is written in second person, which I know not everybody likes, but I really like the way it was done and the way that it kind of had a purpose at the end. But the ending was like shocking. Then prompt number 7 is I would like to rage a character with anger issues. For this, my first thought was pretty much every character, or at least half of them, from the First Law trilogy or even the First Law world, particularly Logan Nine Fingers or Shivers. Just these books are so full of violence, so it's not surprising that a lot of characters have anger issues. However, I just felt like that was too obvious. Also, Paige in her video did say she wanted some unhinged women. And again, we could use Pharaoh from the First Law world because she definitely counts. She is an escaped slave and really harbors a desire for revenge. And she's super violent as well, of course. But I did also think of Nona, I've forgotten how to say it. Let's say Nona. From the Book of the Ancestor trilogy, starting with Red Sister. So Nona is raised in this convent where they are teaching these young girls with different abilities to be assassins. Now I'm thinking I need to reread this. But Nona, right from the beginning, is just so violent and so vicious. And she has good reason to be. But actually, the most unhinged woman I could think of was Marcella from Vengeful by V. Schwab. So this is the sequel to Vicious. I will admit, this book, I was somewhat disappointed because Marcella, such a great character, and unfortunately V. Schwab did what she also did with the Darker Shades of Magic spin-off, where she still spent most of this book with the main characters from the previous book, rather than really developing or fully getting into the story of the new characters, which I think let it down. But Marcella is a mob boss's wife, and people in this world, some people in this world who have experienced a certain something have magical abilities, and Marcella's is basically to ruin things, and she decides basically to get revenge for the things that she's experienced, and she is unhinged and just ready to destroy people, and I loved her. The redeeming quality of this book, for sure, Then prompt 8 is Hip Thrust for Seduction, a spicy book. Now, you know me, I don't really like spicy books, so the best and only option I have for this is Hidden Legacy by Alona Andrews. And to be honest, they're not that spicy. The covers look much spicier than they actually are. But we're following these sisters in this family that runs like this private investigation company in a world where people have like genetic magical abilities, and for that reason, like the ones that are super powerful in magic are also very politically powerful, and this family ends up getting involved investigating a murder that happened with one of these powerful families, and eventually, because of their own abilities, like gaining a fair amount of political power themselves. And yes, both the trilogies in this world revolve around a romance, but I feel like it's always on the side of the like paranormal murder mystery. So I was still able to like focus on the fantasy story, but also these are the kind of romances I like where there's like a couple kind of working together, and it's through that they come to like trust each other and maybe more. Then prompt number 9 is How Do You Want to Do This? A book with a satisfying ending. So I realized from this prompt that I don't remember endings. I tried looking through a list of books that I've read recently-ish, and like I vaguely remember the endings for all of them, but whether they were like fully satisfying or not, most of them I couldn't really remember, which is great for being able to reread books, but not so great for answering this prompt. However, I did just finish Shaman's Crossing by Robin Hobb. So this is a non-Realm of the Elderlings book by Robin Hobb, and the ending, I was listening to this on audiobook, and the whole ending, I was just sitting there shocked, like so worried about everything that was happening, and then anytime anything good would be happening, I would be like, oh, amazing, and it was such an emotional roller coaster. And in the end, even though some terrible things happened, like the ending was so satisfying just going through all of that. And I know this book doesn't have as high a rating as Robin Hobb's books in the Realm of the Elderlings, and at this point, I'm not really sure why. Maybe I'll change my mind when I continue the series, but I really thought that book was just as good as a lot of the books in the Realm of the Elderlings, or at least the Fitz books. I thought it was very similar to a lot of the Fitz books. Then the final prompt for this book tag is Gather Your Party, tag 3 friends. So firstly, I'm going to tag G from Book Roast. I think if you somehow don't know about the magical readathon that G puts together, I will link that down below. But I think if you like D&D and books, which I don't know how you got to this video if you don't, but if you like those things, then you will really like the Magical Readathon. It has a lot of those D&D character building elements, but like if you're an introvert like me, it doesn't involve the same level of social stress. So definitely check G out, and G, if you'd like to do this tag, here's a tag. Also I'll tag Stasi, since I know that she has at least played D&D in the past. Then I also tried to find another booktuber that I think might do D&D, even though honestly it doesn't matter for this tag. As I said, it's just enough to love books and want to talk about them. But maybe Kathy Tridhart would like to do this tag. I mean, as always, book tags are optional. If you want to do it, do it. You don't even need to be tagged. Anyway, do let me know if you have read any of the books that I talked about in this video, because I would love to talk with you about them down in the comments. Or let me know, have you or do you play D&D? Do subscribe if you'd like to see more of my bookish videos. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching. I hope that you are doing well, and I will see you next time.